Hello, I'm Malcolm. Welcome to edition 1961 of the Enfield Talking Newspaper. With me on the reading team for Thursday the 10th of July 2014 are Yvonne, Katherin and Ros, with Dave on the controls. And the items we'll be reading are the copyright of our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent. This week's local stories include traders demand more police to protect crime-ridden street, former council candidate denies false statement on election forms, historic tiles being ripped from front gardens, and cyclists get on their bikes to show traders that a new scheme will benefit all. Well, we don't have any special announcements today, except to remind you that you have a listener's representative, Diane de Jersey, who'll be happy to help you with any problems or concerns you have about your talking newspaper. And you can call Diane on 020-8805-6578. That's 020-8805-6578. And now here's Yvonne with the first news item.
Retailers are ready to take a stand against a spate of attacks and an apparent lack of police help. Shop owners along Hartford Road in Enfield Wash likened the level of crime with the riots of 2011, following constant break-ins of shops and muggings in the area. Following a visit by Home Secretary Theresa May 2 months ago, in which shopkeepers complained about the incessant break-ins, they have failed to see any improvements. Alan Millwood of Albany Radio in Hartford Road told the Enfield Independent things are worse than ever. He said 6 weeks before the Theresa May visit, we had 14 break-ins to shops in Hartford Road, and things are not getting better. We have seen at least 30 shops targeted for robbery, and people are being mugged in the streets as well. It is worse than the riots in 2011. Enough is enough. We must fight back, and we must get more police coming from Enfield Town to this side of the borough. Mr. Millwood claims that the stretch of Hartford Road between Ponders End and Bullsmore Lane has one of the highest crime rates in the borough. In May 2014, 52 crimes were reported along the same stretch, according to police figures, 20 of which came under burglary or theft. Mr. Millwood added, PCSOs, Police Community Support Officers, have been cut right back, and we get them round here maybe once a week, but all the others have been moved to Enfield Town. That's their haven. Dean Partridge of Everett's Florist has run his family business in Hartford Road for 27 years, but believes retailers will be forced to take matters into their own hands before anything improves. He said nothing has really improved since Theresa May's visit, and I told her people will take matters into their own hands to improve things around here, and she said she didn't want it to get that far. Unfortunately, to take police off the streets, then this is going to happen. Mr. Everett paid more than £700 to fit his own CCTV cameras to protect his business, but wants to see more cameras in the area. He added that business has gone down 70% in the past few years. Most of our customers are home deliveries. The older generation are too scared to leave their homes around here. CCTV is needed desperately in this area. This is an organised group who target the shops when they know the retailers are vulnerable, but nothing gets done. We have been neglected. Enfield North MP Nick Dubois said, I am very aware of what is going on in Hartford Road, and I have made contact with shopkeepers in the area to come together as a collective body and fight for more police presence and CCTV cameras. The north-east part of the borough has been neglected for years, and we must act. At the time of going to press, the Enfield Independent had not received a comment from the Metropolitan Police.
A would-be Tory candidate denied attempting to represent Enfield Borough Council after he was convicted of fleecing the same ward out of £30,000. Jefferson Michael Fadaka was handed a suspended jail sentence in 2011 for pocketing housing benefits and income support while studying for a law degree. Mr. Fadaka allegedly declared he had no previous convictions when he applied to represent Enfield Lock Ward on his nomination forms. The Conservative Party only realised his previous convictions after declaring him an official candidate for 2014 elections, Highbury Corner Magistrates Court heard yesterday. Mr Fadaka was convicted of 11 counts of fraud in June 2011 and sentenced to an 11-month suspended sentence. The fact he was convicted disqualified him from standing for election, and it is the prosecution's case that he thereby made a false statement in his election forms, said prosecutor Zoe Martin. Mr Fadaka of Bedale Road, Enfield, denied one count of making false statements in nomination papers. He was bailed to attend Wood Green Crown Court for a plea and case management hearing on July the 22nd.
Historic tiles dating back more than 1 century have been ripped out of front gardens. Osborne Road in Palmer's Green has suffered a spate of thefts of Edwardian and Victorian tiles in people's front gardens during the past month. The patterned tiles remain in a few houses in the street and date back to when the road was built more than 100 years ago. However, their future appears to be at risk as huge chunks of the tiles are being torn out each week. Susan Smith of Osborne Road has had her tiles taken out and admits that it has left her front garden as an obstacle course. She said, "We noticed a small part was missing whilst we had builders, and we just assumed that an accident had happened, but there's a huge gap leading up to our door with no tiles whatsoever. We've put slabs down to cover it up, but I have 2 young children, and it's become an obstacle course to get to the front door." The beautiful design was one of the reasons why we chose to move here a few years ago, and it's like the soul has been ripped out of the house. The Neighbourhood Watch team are also concerned by the continued theft and worry that the road could lose its historic roots forever. And Tina Babbs, Neighbourhood Watch coordinator for Osborne Road, told the Enfield Independent it's an awful crime which is taking place and not something you hear every day. It started happening around a month ago during the night. A small piece would be gone here and there. At first we all thought it was just a one-off, and we noticed a massive area had been dug up and taken out. Miss Babbs claimed the area stolen is around 4 foot by 2 foot, but is baffled to how the theft is being taken place. She added, "I still can't work out how this is happening, and the tiles are quite deep and would surely take a lot of digging. It's astonishing."
Cyclists took a defiant stance against traders who fear their shops will suffer if new bike-friendly paths are installed outside their shops. A group of 20 cyclists took to Winchmore Hill to spend hundreds of pounds squashing rumours shops will suffer if parking spaces are replaced with a mini Holland cycle path. Enfield Borough Council successfully bid for £30 million under the Mayor of London's £100 million Mini Holland initiative to encourage more people to get on their bikes in the capital. As part of their bid, the authority proposed to make cycling safer and more attractive for residents by creating cycle tracks along the A1010 Hartford Road and the A105 Green Lanes, and changing traffic routing in Enfield Town to create a cycle hub. But there have been mixed reactions to the scheme, as traders fear they mainly rely on people coming by car. On Saturday, cyclists formed a cash mob by spending money in shops in the area to reassure shopkeepers their trade will continue to boom. Adrian Loughlin, a Southgate Cycling Club member and borough coordinator for the London Cycling Campaign in Enfield, is championing the scheme and organised the cash mob. Mr. Lachlan, who lives in Ullswater Road, said people panicked when they announced they could remove the parking spaces. But we want to show we're here to buy things. We spend money too. Cyclists aren't just lycra-clad people going out on their bikes just for a bike ride. We want to show them that we actually will be cycling to the shops if these plans go ahead. Claire Rogers of Devonshire Road encourages her 10-year-old daughter Zoe and 7-year-old daughter Fionn to cycle at least once a week to school. But Zoe is often too afraid to use the road, so insists on cycling on the pavements instead. Mrs. Rogers, 42, said safety measures would help her get over her fear. She wouldn't have to worry about speeding cars coming from every direction. It's a no-brainer. We would still spend as much money as people who come by car do. It makes so much sense to me. A consultation on how to improve cycling in the area will be launched in the autumn. Until then, The cyclists are keen... I do beg your pardon. Until then, the cyclists are keen to highlight the benefits of the sport to everyone in the area. David Hughes, 77, of Conway Road, said, "Anything that improves the environment is worth it. This would stop people from using their cars and help the roads be a little greener."
A gang has been jailed for trafficking more than 100 women into the UK. Led by 35-year-old Vishal Chowdhury, the 5-strong gang booked flights for at least 120 women from Hungary, the Czech Republic and Poland, and delivered them to brothels across London, including Barnet, Enfield and Haringey. Some of the women had responded to online adverts, while others had applied online for what they thought were administrative, cleaning and babysitting jobs. But when they arrived in the UK, they found themselves being forced or coerced into prostitution. The gang controlled the women with threats of violence and intimidation, including threatening to harm or tell their families they were prostitutes. They kept their passports in order to exert further control over them, and some women were made to have sex with up to 20 men a day. The gang managed the victims from a makeshift call centre at a residential address in Parkview Gardens, Brent Cross, where they used more than 40 mobile phones to organise bookings on a commercial scale. Each phone had details of the victims' working names, fees and brothel locations taped to them, and they charged clients between £30 and £100 per hour. Detective Sergeant Alan Clark of the Trafficking and Kidnap Unit said, "Many of the victims have been deeply traumatised by what this gang did to them and displayed signs of severe distress when they told us what had happened to them." One victim's graphic account actually brought the interpreter to tears. They came to the UK for regular employment, to earn money, to make a better life for themselves and their families. Instead, they found themselves trapped and at the mercy of this abusive group. The group applied a cold business mentality to their crime, treating women as no more than a commodity. The gang was convicted of a series of offences relating to trafficking and sexual exploitation of women aged between 18 and 45. Chowdhury of Parkview Gardens, Hendon, was sentenced to a total of 12 years imprisonment for conspiracy to traffic persons into the UK for sexual exploitation, 12 years for conspiracy to traffic persons within the UK for sexual exploitation, and 6 years for conspiracy to control prostitution for gain, all to run concurrently. Attila Kovacs, a Hungarian national of Highview Gardens, New Southgate, was sentenced to a total of 6 years imprisonment, and Kanal Chowdhury of Fog Lane, Manchester, was sentenced to a total of 5 years imprisonment. Christian Abel, a Hungarian national of Green Lane, Ilford, was also sentenced to a total of 10 years imprisonment, and his sister, Silvia Abel, a Hungarian national from Budapest, was sentenced to a total of 3 years imprisonment for their parts in the crime.
A primary school teacher has been named as one of the newest fellows of a prestigious science college. Ruth Shallcross, who works at Lavender Primary School in Lavender Road, Enfield, has been named a Fellow of the Primary Science Teacher College. This is in addition to her previous success when she was named Primary School Science Teacher of the Year for 2014, meaning Ms. Shallcross has now been recognised amongst her peers as one of the most innovative and effective teachers of primary science in the UK. The college, launched in 2003, traditionally accepts 7 or 8 members each year. However, 30 new fellows were accepted at a recent conference at Manchester University. College Director Cathy Schofield said, "This year saw our greatest number of awardees, including more men and more early years teachers, but definitely no drop in standards. There's no question that the Primary Science Teacher College is set to make waves in classrooms across the UK. These teachers are doing incredible work, raising standards, excelling in tough conditions, and going above and beyond what is expected, and we're delighted to be able to celebrate their contribution."
An inspirational 80-year-old grandmother is celebrating 25 years of volunteering at a charity shop. Elizabeth Isaacs first stepped through the doors of Cancer Research UK in Palmer's Green in 1989, determined to do something about the disease that had struck members of her family. More than a quarter of a century on, she is being celebrated as the store's most dedicated volunteer. The grandmother of 9 lost her mother, stepmother and brother to cancer before she and her daughter Linda were both diagnosed with the disease more recently. Linda has since been given the all clear, and Mrs. Isaacs continues to receive treatment, but she has rarely missed her twice-weekly volunteer sessions at the charity shop. She said, "I feel like I might be doing a bit of good. I chat to my customers about their problems, and I've got to know them all over the years, and the staff have always been very nice. I've seen lots of changes over the years, and I've got used to the new tills and technology, but some days it likes me, and some days it doesn't like me at all." The volunteers at the Green Lane shop held a celebration, and Mrs. Isaacs received a letter of thanks from the charity's managing director. Shop manager Maria Figuera said, "She's a total example to all of us. She's very punctual and totally reliable, even took the trouble to learn the new till systems recently. We depend on people like Elizabeth, and it is so nice to have someone for such a long time. Our new volunteers learn a lot from her, which is fantastic. In fact, we all learn from her." Despite so many years on the shop floor at the charity store, Mrs. Isaacs from Southgate says she has no plans to give up at any time soon. She said, "I don't know where the years have gone. When the time comes and they start hinting that maybe I should stay at home, then perhaps I'll pack it in. But I still enjoy it, and I'll be there for some more years to come."
Palmer's Green Library is soon to close for more than a year as major refurbishment work gets underway. The Broomfields Lane Centre will shut its doors at 5 p.m. on Saturday, July the 26th, and will not reopen until the autumn of 2015. Renovation work includes new furnishings, more books, computers, free Wi-Fi and DVDs, and CDs for borrowing. New dedicated areas will be created for children and teenagers, as well as homework sections and a community room that can be hired out. Councillor Aoife Orhan, Enfield Borough Council's Cabinet Member for Libraries, said, "Palmer's Green is a successful and popular library, and this work will bring it up to date. Libraries in Ridge Avenue, Southgate Circus and Winchmore Hill will be open on additional days to help cover the lengthy closure at Palmer's Green. Staff will also be holding information sessions at Palmer's Green Library to explain more about the refurbishment on Saturday, July the 12th from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m. For details on the extended opening times at other libraries, visit the Council's website on www.enfield.gov.uk/library. And you may have noticed, if you use have enough sight to use the internet, that many of the council's web pages actually have a little button, and when you click on that, it reads the page to you, which can be quite useful. And even if you can't do that yourself, you could get somebody to click the button for you so that it would read the page to you. Quite handy, that.
An 89-year-old D-Day veteran received the surprise of his life when he was invited to meet the Queen. Terry Dibley from Horn Lane, Enfield, only knew he was nominated to attend the Not Forgotten Association's annual garden party at Buckingham Palace. As he filled out the details of his war service, he had no idea he would be chosen to meet the Queen. The great-grandfather of 7 said, "I had a form to complete to give my details. It just sort of detailed my war service, and I just mentioned that I was over on D-Day. To my surprise, when I received the formal invitation, I learned I would be among a select few presented to Her Majesty." Mr. Dibley was a 19-year-old Royal Marine when he landed on the coast of Normandy 1 hour after the initial assault began. He said he joined the service because that's what people did at the time. He said it was wartime. You just sort of went. I particularly wanted to join the Royal Marines. It was the glamour of it for an 18-year-old lad. When he attended the garden party, Mr. Dibley was ecstatic to see the guard around the palace mounted by Royal Marines. "That really made my day. I was told that last happened in 1986, he said. But the highlight of the evening was his presentation to the Queen. With his grandson behind him, Mr. Dibley had an unhurried conversation with the monarch. He said she was very delightful to everybody. We had a few words and she asked me whether I had been back to Normandy. I told her I had been back for the 60th and 65th anniversaries, but I couldn't get back this time. She replied that it must be more and more difficult as the veterans are getting on in age. Mr. Dibley said, I never imagined I would meet the Queen. It was an amazing experience and such a memorable occasion.
A flamboyant bartender will show off his cocktail flair as he looks to compete in a national bartenders competition. Michael Albert, a bartender at TGI Fridays in Southbury Road, Enfield, has been selected to compete in the Southern UK Bartenders Championship final this week. After months of practicing his routine, the bartender and mixologist will use different showboats to create different cocktails in order to book a place at the national final in September. Mr. Albert said, I can't wait to compete in the regionals and try to nail down my place in the UK final. The competition gives bartenders across the UK the chance to show that bartending is much more than just a job and demonstrate the skill it takes to be one of the best in the UK. If the Enfield worker was to win the UK final, he would head to America to compete in the TGI Fridays World Championships for the chance to be crowned the world's greatest bartender. Mr. Albert added, the standard is going to be high as I'm competing against some of the top bartenders and cocktail experts in the south of England, but I have been practicing for months and I hope I've got enough skills, tricks and knowledge up my sleeve to make it through to the UK final. Competing in the world final is the ultimate dream, but I'm taking this one stage at a time. There is a chance of double success for the Enfield chain, as Chris Thulis, also from Enfield TGI Fridays, will be competing within the flaring category.
An opticians and a church collected more than 850 pairs of second-hand glasses for a global sight charity. Specsavers in Edmonton Green recruited the help of nearby St Edmund's Church in the 2-month charity collection to fund eye care for people in developing countries. Throughout April and May, parishioners collected more than 500 pairs of glasses and a further 350 were handed in at the North Mall Shopping Centre store. All of the glasses will be donated to Vision Aid Overseas, a charity that uses proceeds from selling the reusable materials towards establishing vision centres, training healthcares, and using volunteers to give eye examinations and treatment. Specsavers store manager, Anar Desai, said eye care is something we all take for granted in the UK because there is an optician on almost every high street. But for people in developing countries, this is not the case. The VAO recycling scheme is a fantastic initiative, and we encourage all of our customers purchasing new glasses to donate their old pair. It's so easy to do, and rather than gathering dust on the back of a cupboard, they can benefit people in countries where they qualify eye care is not as readily available.
Girls held a special picnic to mark the centenary of the Brownies. The girl groups, made up of 7 to 10-year-olds, celebrated 100 years of Brownies at Carterhatch Primary School in Carterhatch Lane, Enfield. Party games, ice lollies and singing around a birthday cake made up the special day's activities. The Brownies, from 13 of the 22 units in Enfield, created a time capsule and filled it with letters and things that remind them of why they take part. Claire Wheeler, Division Commissioner, said, seeing the girls take part in the fun and games has been fantastic. I've loved reading all of their stories about what they get up to each week, the trips they go on, and their favourite places to sleep over, which include the Science Museum and RAF Hendon. It's great to hear that they all want Brownies to be around in another 100 years from today.
A teenager who threatened a man at knife point during a terrifying robbery has been sentenced to 3 years in a young offenders institution. Durice Reed of Hoe Lane, Enfield, held a knife to the throat of his 33-year-old victim as he walked through Bush Hill Park, Queen Anne's Place, on December 12th. He forced the man to withdraw £250 from a cash point, but was arrested on the same day. At Wood Green Crown Court on June 26, Reed was sentenced after being found guilty of robbery at the end of a 2-day trial. Investigating officer, Detective Constable Rob Delaney, said, "This was a terrifying attack, causing the victim to fear for his life. This sentence will take this attacker off our streets for a number of years."
A garden centre has been damaged after a stack of 100 wooden pallets caught fire. 6 fire engines and 35 firefighters battled the blaze at Waterworld Garden Centre in Ballsmore Lane, Enfield, on Thursday. The stack of pallets and row of trees at the back of the centre caught fire, causing damage to the centre. It took more than an hour to put out. No one was injured during the incident. The fire is believed to have been caused by embers travelling from a bonfire in a park at the back of the garden centre's yard.
2 children have been recognised for their outstanding work at school and in the community. Jada Carabay from Winchmore School and Omolola Olufemi from Enfield County School were given certificates at a recent award ceremony organised by Enfield Borough Council. The pair were chosen among dozens of outstanding students nominated by their teachers. Jada was described in her nomination as a key member of her school's Rock Challenge music competition squad before a skiing injury left her unable to perform this year. The teacher said she has taken this in her stride and she attends every rehearsal and is now teaching, coaching, choreographing and mentoring all the students, and her support to staff is fantastic. Omolola has been an active member and more recently head girl of Enfield County School, delivering assemblies and helping to organise various competitions. She also took part in a World Challenge expedition to Vietnam. Her teacher said Lola has the ability to engage with both individuals and groups on a meaningful level, and she has used this skill throughout her time in Enfield County and has been fully involved in the life of the school. Her contribution has been substantial. The pair were presented with framed certificates at an award ceremony at the Dugdale Centre in London last Monday.
Media students got a taste of Hollywood when their movies were screened at the Oscars of Enfield. Teenagers from the College of Haringey, Enfield and North East London dressed to impress for the end-of-term event at Cineworld Enfield on Thursday, June the 19th. More than 30 films were screened, ranging from comedy to drama and tragedy, with awards including Best Director, Best Animation Edit and Best Social Media Production Edit handed out afterwards. Interim college principal Jane O'Neill said, "The Enfield Oscars are always a collection of highly entertaining short films in a wide variety of genres. Each year I'm hugely impressed by the students' technical ability as well as their creative talents, and the Enfield Oscars 2014 were no exception. Congratulations to all involved."